Good morning, guys. Thank you again for joining us on our channel. Today we're doing something a little bit different, and we are going to go ahead and partake in trying to replicate and match an OEM paint job on this 350Z. All the body work has been done. The 350Z was probably crashed or hit a couple times in battle, which you can see the car has some additional scuff marks on it. But for us today, we are just going to go ahead and wrap this panel. So I'd like to just kind of talk about some of the very simple tools that are required to do some pretty basic wraps. You know, it's for some people, and it's, again, not for all people, but something like this is pretty easy. And the one thing that I can strongly suggest is just clean, clean, clean. Like, it could literally never be clean enough. So for us, our wrap booth is currently super swamped. There's already a full car in there that's getting a commercial wrap, so we're unable to do it in that designated area. So today we're just gonna hurry up and, you know, do a good job, obviously, but go ahead and slap this panel back together, make it look as good as new. So I want to kind of talk about some of the tools. So something that we use is a curved knife like this. This is ideal. You always want to be able to break your blades every time you go to do a cut. Having smooth, consistent cutting through the whole process is extremely important. You're going to need blue tape. You are going to need probably 2 different types of squeegees. I love this one. I do not have very good upper body strength, and this one has been a lifesaver. Also has some very, very thin corners for when you're trying to get onto edges. So this is great. This is kind of like when I just need to tack something down, but I don't want to fully secure anything yet. So these are my 2 go-to squeegees. You are probably going to want to get a toolkit of something like this. These are great because they're magnetic, so they kind of stick together. They stick to the vehicle or other working areas that you might have, like a table or something. These help tuck material under the edges in the plastics. If I wasn't to remove this light, I would want to go ahead and tuck it under the light. I'm also going to tuck it underneath the trim right here and inside the door, which the door I'm going to keep open. Inside the door here, you can already see that I taped this piece out of the way because I want to try to run the material as flush as I can with this natural body line. Some 2 other things that I would think are extremely important is, of course, rubbing alcohol. You're going to need this to clean, 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 and blue shop towels. Super important. So this is my first time really filming with a ring light, and I'm hoping all of this is getting caught because I can't see the screen because I wanted to make this as clean and crisp as possible. So I hope you guys enjoy. Thanks for coming to the channel. I'm gonna do time lapse and a mix of regular filming as well. So then that way you guys can get an idea of what it kind of takes to, you know, buy a piece of material and get that installed. So actually, I'll start talking when I'm in front of the camera. One of the very first things you're going to do is you want to ensure that your piece of material is going to cover the whole entire area and then some. So I always just like to double check, make sure you're going to have plenty of space and material, which in this case I do. You know, top and bottom. Since this is a pretty big panel, you don't really have to worry about waste or anything. Look, as you can see, like on the 350Z, if you move it too far over, you're not going to have enough to finish out over here. So you kind of just have to gauge it by your best ability that's going to have the best coverage. So something like that is going to be pretty close. So as mentioned, you can never ever clean enough. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this panel again and then mock this up with blue tape. Okay, So I cleaned the area really good, and I went ahead and mocked up the location that I wanted the wrap area. So with this 350Z, we're going to have a lot of dead space over here in the wheel well, and I already know that I'm going to want to use this piece of material for the gas cap. So once you kind of have your material staged where you need it to be staged, you can either A, use a dry erase marker to kind of map out the excess material that you want to cut off. And one of the reasons why you don't really want a lot of excess material is because the wrap will just stick to places and it creates static, and it's going to create dust and dirt. And you don't want dust and dirt underneath the wrap, like, at all. Or minimize that, which I've seen a lot of people also masking tape headlights and taillights, which is also very resourceful, so the wrap material doesn't stick to those. Or if you have the tools or the ability or the knowledge, it's also just as easy to remove those items, so you're also able to tuck a little bit easier. So right now I'm going to go ahead and like cut out the wheel well and cut off any extra pieces that I know that I'm not going to need to stretch the wrap. Okay, so you can already see that I went ahead and I cut off the wheel well, which is this piece right here, and I went ahead and cut off the rear part as well. And just because I didn't clean that area, and that's really not my main focus right now, I might go ahead and do a patch square for the client just so they're able for everything to flow a little bit nicer. But my main focus to kind of show you guys is just working from this outer, wide part of the fender up and out. And I did keep the material on the sides longer so you're able to like stretch if need be. The humidity is really high today in Houston area, so I might end up having to use a heat gun a little bit, but I really want to try to avoid it as much as possible. A lot of people think that you just absolutely need a heat gun and in order to wrap and do all these things, which some people do it that way and they do wonderful work. I try not to use a heat gun unless I really need to, or I have to smooth out any like creases or their hard corners on a vehicle or something like that. So again, everyone's process is totally acceptable. It's just doing whatever is going to work best and visually most visually appealing, and obviously durability, because I don't want to have any bubbles or cuts or anything like that in my material. That is going to be a main focus for like water, dirt, and debris to get into, because once that gets under the wrap, it's not going to stay. So now we're going to go ahead and move into the process of installing this wrap. Again, I work from the highest point out. So I'm going to go ahead and put y'all back on time lapse as I get going on that. So grab your coffee and enjoy. I wanted to go ahead and come out of time lapse to talk about a few things. So because this isn't like a very huge commercial job or like the end of the world if something goes wrong, I have backup material, all of that. I went ahead and started from the highest point out, as I had mentioned, so which was this fender. I really wanted to secure this body line, and I'm sure in the video you guys also saw me hand tack this down and squeegee extremely softly. Like, I don't have a lot of body strength, so, but like for men or for very strong women who probably work out, do not squeegee until you have a glass atmosphere. So like this where this is crinkled, do not squeegee this. Don't even attempt to squeegee this. Like, there is no reason to put yourself through that stress trying to unclutter that. Again, I had mentioned it is really high humidity right now in Houston, so more than likely I'm gonna have to get the heat gun out to help smooth this. Also, with the same thing right here above the tire, you can see how the material is very, very puckered, and so in order to get a nice clean finish, we're going to have to run the heat gun on this material. So then I can tuck it under with my finger and then cut at like a 45 or more angled cut. So then that way, you know, it securely tucks under this panel and we don't have to worry about dirt and debris or the tire potentially like rubbing it back off and up. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on making more areas into the glass terminology and squeegee out, which this side did great and beautiful. So this side's probably going to cause me no problems at all. It's going to be more of this smaller confined area, but I'm going to go ahead and really work on this, get this section knocked out because this is bigger, and then I'll progress into doing the little bit more difficult stuff and grab the heat gun if I need to. Go ahead and talk about what I have done so far. So this side worked out really well. You can pretty much see I made it to all corners of the vehicle. So far, because I don't want to cut until the very end, I just always bring the material flush to like where I'm gonna finish it out at. So the lighting is not really the best, but it's 100% smooth to this body line, like all the way until this crease down here, because I'm going to cut inside here. So this is going to go all the way down around this corner right here, and then we're going to cut obviously all along here and then inside this wheel well and stuff too. So I did have one little mess up right here. There is a lot of like Bondo and bodywork underneath this wrap without paint on top, which you can kind of see there's a lot of like orange peel looking, and that's because, let's see if I can get it to like zoom in. I don't know if that's any better. Not really. So there's a lot of just like orange peel, like a look to it, and that's because the Bondo is really porous, and then the wrap is obviously like soaking into that. But again, from like 10-15 foot, it looks really good, you know, compared to what he had before. You can see like all the Bondo on the plastic right there. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm sure in the time lapse you'll see that I had to get the heat gun out. I was having a lot of problems with this laying smooth because this goes from such a high peak into almost like a valley right here, and the material was just like not really working in my favor, because you can actually see where there's another body line right here. So once you're super happy with everything, you're gonna like use extremely firm pressure squeegee and like smear it all out, because after you do your, like probably even maybe before you do your cutting, or honestly both, because I usually do both, you're gonna want to heat all this and squeegee it really good before you heat it, just to make sure that, you know, there's no air pockets, that nothing's gonna come off, everything along those lines. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish out the back half, and then I'm gonna start cutting and whatnot. ahead and come off of time lapse to kind of just do like a close-up. So I'm really dissatisfied with a few different things, which this is just a drift car and my client is probably not going to care, but this is where the Bondo pulled up under the wrap. And the wrap wasn't even squeegeed down at all. And I also, same thing with this, there's some kind of dirt and debris up underneath this that is just not heating out or anything. But this is actual Bondo, so it almost looks like it has an embossed birthmark. But kind of from the video, which I'm sure I'm gonna like vocalize over the time-lapse sections, I already went ahead and cut this. I have to go get an employee to help pop it open, but I wanted to cut along this because I already knew that I was gonna probably redo this separately, which this piece actually turned out really well, so I might not end up, because remember how I kept the piece from the wheel well and this back piece and stuff? So I cut closest to this just so that way I had enough material to tuck underneath here, and we're going to smooth and heat that and pop this open. I might end up rewrapping this again. I'm not quite sure just yet. And then now I'm to the point where I'm smoothing this out so I can go ahead and cut along here, cut along all of this. Same thing, heat and tuck everything under here, and you can just see this orange peel. And it's so weird because I've done a few different cars that had bodywork already on them, and sometimes we have a lot of problems and sometimes we don't, and I'm sure it just really depends on how bad the accident is with how much Bondo is being used. So I don't really know. My client's still going to be happy. I'm sure Jose is not going to be upset at all. But I'm disappointed, and this is why, you know, we tell people, like, however the condition of the car is under the wrap is going to show through, because, like, look, it showed through. Like, you can't get rid of these. Like, without even, and even if I was to rewrap this whole fender, there's no guarantee that same thing's not going to keep happening with different parts of the primer and Bondo pulling up. So this wasn't, like I said, this wasn't even squeegeed. And then you can see like the gas tank had like a little blemish on it. Like obviously that's visible through the wrap and stuff. Like everything is just kind of unavoidable with the wrap. I mean, it looks really good. I'm super happy overall with the whole process and how it's looking right now, but just like kind of bummed like about this, but that was really out of my hands. So they probably should have clear coated it before they brought it over here, but it's all right. It's gonna be okay. So I'm gonna keep working. Probably not do any more time lapse or anything like that, but gonna cut, wrap this all up, and come back to you guys in a second. So just wanted to mention, you always want to cut your blade, which I literally just cut it. You can buy one of these blade cutters. I know it's so wasteful. I hate the feeling of it, but like in order for your wrap to look clean and crisp, you really need to keep your blade cut. So I'm gonna go cut, tuck, do all that kind of stuff. Again, come back and revisit in a second. So momentarily ago, I was considering keeping the wrap that I already had laid on here instead of laying it again, but then it got like a freaking air bubble that I couldn't get rid of, and I was just like frustrated, so I tore it off. But I have that extra material from the wheel well that I was talking about. But pretty much everything is cut and done and squeegeed, and it's already been heated. But yeah, you can notice the gas tank, the pretty significant color difference between the two. But I think the client will be really happy. I'm gonna go ahead and toss this back in here. And that just required like a few bolts, so super easy to put back together. I'm gonna go ahead and do the gas tank, and I might go ahead and just clean this really good and do this piece here. But other than that, I'm pretty much done. I'm gonna close the door so y'all can see that too. I moved this out of the way whenever I was doing the wrap. So put this all back together. And I can even close the hatch and pick up a little bit because I got stuff everywhere. Oh God, I am throwing stuff around on the floor, everywhere. Stuff's going everywhere. Ring light, boom, done. I'm gonna close the hatch. Oh. So, yep. So yeah, I'm gonna do this piece just so that way this at least kind of all looks like one panel. Maybe this client will end up wrapping his whole vehicle at some point or crashing it some more, so it's not the end of the world. Looks pretty good, pretty quick for about an hour and a half job. Obviously I take a little bit more precaution when cutting than maybe like the average person would. Again, I'm a little disappointed with the Bondo, with the wrap. Definitely not what I would have liked to see, but I can't predict stuff like that, so it is what it is. So I'm gonna finish up. I'm gonna do one last like overview up close when everything is done for y'all to see. And thank you guys so much for watching. If you ever need anything or have any questions, don't hesitate to let us know. already kind of talked about how I decided to do this in 2 separate pieces. You can see it's cut flush along the back side here. It's already heated and cured, and all around the edges on the gas tank, same thing. Heated and cured. Oh, see, look, this is why we go back over stuff, y'all. There's probably a lot of dirt and debris up under there. And also, I ripped my nail off during all of this, so that's always fun. But this is why it's really important to clean, but everything else is super clean and flush cut. I did this little extra add-on piece just for funsies for the client. Like, if they're unhappy with it, they can totally just remove it. But at least it helps cover up wherever the Bondo and stuff was before. I'm gonna go ahead and move this piece of wood so the door can shut. So that's what it looks like right now. Definitely not perfect, but a heck of a lot better than what it was. See, like, doesn't even close very good. But again, I'm disappointed with the few little blemishes, but I just think it's just probably the dust in the Bondo, and it's just something like the primer. It's just porous and it's out of my control. But other than that, I am really happy with this job. I hope you guys enjoy this video. If there's any questions or anything that you need, like, yes, I know I'm definitely not the best rapper, but this was also like for fun. This was one of my drift buddies. And like I said, this piece was a total add-on piece. I know that this is gonna fail, but the bumper is ripped between where it attaches to here and this piece right here. Like, look, it's gonna fail. However, at least it kind of looks nice while it's holding its life together for now, you know, and sometimes you just kind of have to deal with it and rough it a little bit before you can make a big jump. But like I said, we do big commercial wraps on like brand new, nicer vehicles. There's one going on in the tent right now. I will hopefully get some footage and upload on that. I really appreciate you guys watching per usual. Let me know below if you have any questions. Thanks, you guys.